the stagecoach moved west at a steady but weary pace, its wheels groaning with every turn as dust rose behind it like a fading trail of memory. Inside, Leonor Whitaker sat upright, despite the cramped bench, her spine stiff with resolve more than comfort. The leather seat was cracked and hard, the air close and heavy with the scent of sweat, oil, and anxiety. She folded her gloved hands in her lap, focusing on stillness, on control. This journey was not one she had taken lightly. Leonor had left St. Louis before dawn, 3 days earlier, watching the city dissolve into farmland, then prairie, then endless sky. She carried little one suitcase, a modest purse, and a letter that had altered her life. The land near Red Willow was not grand, but it was hers, a place where she could begin again, without expectations, pressing in on her from all sides. Still, the unease inside the coach was impossible to ignore. Passengers spoke in murmurs, voices dropping whenever the driver slowed or the trail narrowed. Someone mentioned bandits. Another spoke of ambushes at sundown. Leonor turned her gaze toward the small window, watching the prairie glow under the setting sun. The land looked peaceful, too peaceful. The sky burned with shades of amber and crimson, as though warning of what twilight could bring. The warning came suddenly. A sharp crack split the air, followed by a violent jolt that threw Leonor sideways. The coach lurched, wood splintering as bullets tore into its flank. Horses screamed in terror. Inside, chaos erupted. Cries, prayers, frantic movement. Leonor fell to the floor, her heart pounding so fiercely it stole her breath. Bandits, someone shouted. Masked riders circled the coach, shadows against the dying light. Gunfire echoed again and again, each shot tightening the knot in Leonor's chest. She pressed herself low, clutching her purse as though it might anchor her to life. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. The West does not forgive the unprepared. Leonor wondered, in that terrifying moment, if she had made a fatal mistake. Then, something changed. A new rhythm cut through the noise, hoofbeats, fast and purposeful. Leonor lifted her head just enough to see a lone rider emerge against the blazing sun. He rode hard, straight toward the bandits, his silhouette sharp and fearless, his rifle cracked with controlled precision. One bandit fell. Another swerved, shouting in alarm. The tide turned almost instantly. The attackers faltered, confusion spreading through their ranks. Dust and curses filled the air as they scattered, retreating into the vast land that moments before had given them confidence. Silence followed, thick and disbelieving. Leonor's breath came in shaky pulls. The rider dismounted and approached the coach, boots steady, movements unhurried. When he opened the door, lantern light revealed a wet face and calm blue eyes that held neither pride nor expectation. "You folks hurt?" he asked. His voice was even grounding, as though danger were an everyday inconvenience. Leonor met his gaze, her fear slowly giving way to awe. "No," she said softly. "Thanks to you." He tipped his hat in a brief, respectful gesture. "Name's Sam." As the sun slipped beneath the horizon, casting long shadows over the prairie, Leonor realized one undeniable truth. Her journey west had already changed because fate had decided to ride in at sundown. By the time the stagecoach rolled into Sundown, Stagecoach stand, night had fully claimed the land. Lanterns bobbed in the darkness as the driver guided the wounded coach to a stop beside the weather-beaten building. The horses were lathered with sweat, sides heaving, their terror not yet spent. Leonor stepped down carefully, her legs weak from more than the long ride. The moment her boots touched the ground, the weight of what had nearly happened settled over her. She swayed, and before she could catch herself, a steady hand closed around her arm. "Easy there," Sam said quietly. His grip was firm, but gentle, grounding her in a way she hadn't realized she needed. Leonor nodded, drawing in a slow breath. "Thank you," she said again, aware that the words felt small compared to the debt she owed him. The stand itself was modest, a single long building with peeling paint, a small corral, and a windmill that creaked softly in the breeze. A fire burned nearby, its light casting flickering shadows across anxious faces. Coffee was poured, blankets passed around. The passengers clustered together, voices overlapping with relief, and disbelief. Sam stepped away without ceremony. Leonor watched him from near the fire as he tended to his horse, running practiced hands along its neck and shoulders, murmuring low words meant only for the animal. There was a calm to him now, as though the violence on the trail had never touched him. Yet, something in his posture suggested distance, like a man accustomed to leaving before attachments could form. Leonor recognized that instinct. She had left behind more than a city. She had left behind expectations, whispered judgments, and a life that no longer fit her. Coming west had been an act of courage, but also of escape. Perhaps that was why she found herself drawn to Sam's quiet solitude. After a moment's hesitation, she crossed the yard toward him. "You didn't have to do what you did," she said. "You could have ridden on." Sam glanced up, his blue eyes reflecting the lantern light. "Could have," he agreed. "Didn't feel right. That kind of choice usually has a reason behind it." He considered her for a moment, then shrugged. "Sometimes the reason's simple. Folks need help." Leonor smiled faintly. "You make it sound easy." "Nothing about it is easy," he said, more honestly now. They spoke as the night deepened about her destination, Red Willow, and the land she hoped to turn into something lasting. Sam listened, without interrupting, his attention steady. When he spoke of himself, his words were measured. He'd ridden the trails for years, helping where he could, never staying long. "Roots make you slow," he said, "and people start relying on you." Leonor studied his face, the faint lines etched by sun and wind. "Is that such a bad thing?" His gaze held hers longer than before. "Depends on what you're afraid of losing." The wind shifted, carrying the scent of coffee and dust. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence felt comfortable, rare, and unexpected. When the station owner announced that the coach would depart at first light, a ripple of movement passed through the group. Leonor felt a surprising pang in her chest. She turned to Sam. "Will I see you again?" He hesitated, then smiled faintly. The West has a way of crossing paths. It wasn't a promise, but it wasn't a goodbye either. As Leonor settled onto a borrowed cot inside the stand, sleep came slowly. Her thoughts returned again and again to the lone rider who had appeared at sundown, and the feeling insistent that her story and his were no longer separate. Dawn arrived, pale and cool, stretching slowly across the prairie. As Sundown stagecoach stand stirred to life, Leonor woke before the others, the events of the previous night still vivid in her mind. Outside, the windmill groaned softly, and somewhere a horse snorted, impatient to move on. She sat up on the cot, smoothing her skirt, and reminded herself why she was here: to build something of her own, not to lose herself in momentary attachments. Still, she found her thoughts returning to Sam. When she stepped outside, the yard was washed in soft light. The stagecoach stood ready, its repairs rough but serviceable. Leonor scanned the corral and felt a quiet lift of relief when she spotted Sam near the fence, tightening the cinch on his saddle. He looked as though he belonged to the morning, steady, purposeful, already part of the land she was only beginning to understand. "You're riding out?" she asked as she approached. He glanced up. "Same direction as you." For a while, the words were simple, but they settled something inside her. The coach rolled out shortly after, wheels crunching over gravel as the prairie opened once more. Sam rode alongside when the trail narrowed, his presence both watchful and reassuring. Leonor found herself less tense than she had been before, her fear eased by the quiet confidence in his posture and the way his eyes scanned the horizon. At midday, they stopped near a shallow creek. The passengers stretched stiff limbs and shared provisions. Leonor sat on a smooth stone, while Sam watered his horse. Conversation came easily now, as though the road itself had worn down their reserve. She told him of the life she'd left behind, the expectations placed on her, the quiet disappointment that had followed her choices. "The land near Red Willow isn't much," she said, "but it's mine. That matters." Sam nodded. "Ownership changes how you stand in the world." She smiled at that. "You speak like someone who's thought about it." "I've thought about a lot of things," he replied, "just never stayed long enough to claim any of them." The afternoon passed beneath an endless sky. Sam rode close when the land grew rocky. Farther out, when the trail widened, always aware of her, without hovering. Leonor admired that restraint. Fee protected without assuming ownership. She hadn't realized she valued so deeply. That night, they camped near a slow-moving river. The fire crackled softly, its light dancing across Sam's face. The other passengers slept nearby, their trust in him evident even in rest. Sam stared into the flames, his expression distant. "I don't stay in one place," he said at last. "People start depending on you. Then, one day you disappoint them." Leonor studied him, hearing more in his words than he spoke aloud. "You can't protect everyone," she said gently, "but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try." He met her gaze, something unguarded passing between them. "What if staying means failing?" Or, she said, "what if leaving does?" The question lingered, unanswered between them. Later, as Leonor lay beneath the stars, she realized how much the road between them had changed her. Gratitude had grown into respect, respect into something deeper. Sam was no longer just the man who had saved her life. He was someone who saw her not as a burden or a dreamer, but as an equal. And Sam, listening to the river and the steady rhythm of Leonor's breathing nearby, knew that for the first time in years, the road ahead felt less like an escape and more like a choice. The canyon narrowed without warning, its stone walls rising sharply on either side of the trail. The sky above became a thin ribbon of blue, and the sound of hooves echoed too loudly for comfort. Leonor felt unease settle in her chest as the stagecoach slowed, the driver scanning the rocks ahead. Sam sensed it too. He rode ahead slightly now, his posture alert, hand resting near his rifle. The bandits from the first attack had fled in panic. But men like that rarely vanished entirely. Desperation had a way of dragging trouble back into a person's path. The first shot rang out from above. Frog shattered near the coach's front wheel, sending shards skittering across the trail. The horses reared in terror, and the canyon filled with the echo of gunfire. Leonor's heart slammed against her ribs as masked figures appeared along the ridge, their silhouettes sharp against the sky. "They've got the high ground," the driver shouted. Sam didn't hesitate. He wheeled his horse between the attackers and the coach, firing upward with controlled precision. His movements were swift, practiced, not reckless, but fearless all the same. Leonor watched him with a mixture of terror and awe, knowing that if he fell, the rest of them would be defenseless. The passengers scrambled for cover, panic threatening to unravel them. Leonor forced herself to move, remembering Sam's calm under pressure. She grabbed a spare box of ammunition from beneath the driver's seat and began reloading cartridges with trembling hands. Fear did not disappear, but it sharpened into purpose. "Here," she shouted, tossing the box toward Sam when he rode close enough. He caught it mid-motion, surprise flickering across his face before he nodded once in approval. It was fierce and chaotic. Smoke filled the canyon, stinging Leonor's eyes. Gunshots echoed until her ears rang. One bandit tried to rush the trail, only to be driven back by coordinated fire from Sam and the driver working together. Then Sam cried out. Leonor's breath caught as she saw him clutch his arm, blood darkening his sleeve. He stayed upright, teeth clenched, firing again, until the attackers finally broke. One by one, they retreated, scrambling up the rocks and disappearing into the canyon beyond. Silence fell, heavy and absolute. Leonor rushed to Sam's side as he slid from his saddle. "You're hurt," she said, her voice shaking as she pressed her hands to the wound. "It's shallow," he muttered, though his face had gone pale. She tore a strip from her underskirt without hesitation and bound his arm, her hands steadier now than they had been moments before. "You don't get to decide what scares me," she said fiercely. "Don't do that again." Sam managed a weak smile. "Guess I didn't think I'd have someone worrying." The words struck deeper than she expected. As they resumed the journey, slower now, something fundamental had changed. Leonor had faced danger not as a helpless passenger, but as a participant. Sam had faced it, knowing someone stood with him, not behind him. That night, as the campfire burned low, Sam spoke quietly. "I've been running from places that ask you to stay." Leonor met his gaze. "Maybe some places don't ask. Maybe they offer." The canyon lay far behind them, but its echo lingered. Neither of them could return to who they'd been before. Red Willow came into view just as the sun dipped low, painting the horizon in warm shades of gold and rust. The town was modest wooden buildings, a dusty main street, a few hitching posts, worn smooth by years of use, but to Leonor it looked like possibility given shape. She stepped down from the stagecoach with a sense of finality, knowing the journey that had brought her here had changed her in ways she would carry forever. Sam dismounted beside her, his injured arm bound but healing. He moved more carefully now, though his presence remained steady. The passengers offered him grateful farewells, their voices thick with admiration. He accepted them quietly, never seeking credit for what he had done. Leonor watched him, realizing how easily he faded into the background when danger passed. How little he asked of the world. "You could make something good here," he said. "I intend to," Leonor replied, "but not alone." The words slipped out before she could second-guess them. Sam turned to her, surprise flickering across his face. He studied her for a long moment, as if weighing a future he had never allowed himself to imagine. "I don't know how to stay," he admitted. Leonor met his gaze without flinching. "Then, stay anyway." Days turned into weeks. Sam helped her build a small cabin, his skills practical and patient. Leonor worked the land, learning its rhythms, discovering strength she hadn't known she possessed. They spoke often in the evenings, sharing quiet laughter, shared burdens, an unspoken understanding. Sam began to belong to the land, to the work, to Leonor. One evening, as the sun settled low and painted the sky with familiar colors, Leonor rested her head against Sam's shoulder. "You rode in at sundown and changed everything," she said softly. He smiled, brushing his thumb across her hand. "Maybe I was just finally ready to stop riding." The West stretched wide and unforgiving, but within its vastness, they had found something rare: commitment, chosen freely, courage shared, love built slowly and honestly. As night fell over Red Willow, lantern light glowing in their cabin window, Leonor knew she had found more than land. She had found a partner who stood beside her, not out of obligation, but because he wanted to stay. And Sam, watching the stars emerge one by one, knew he had finally found a place worth calling home. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories.